All right, folks. That music was perfectly timed, and I'm gonna give my gratitude to Mr. Brian Mendenhall for slaying it at the jukebox over there. That was
Thank you.
uh,
Thank you.
that was fantastic, man. I almost feel I don't know how much you guys play around with video filters, but I feel like in the Halloween vibe, is this where I need to go? I don't know. I'll take that off so it's not a distraction, but I feel underdressed for the Monster Mash. All that to say. Um, how's everyone doing today? Good. Take those nods as good. Kaitlyn, Megan, can
Excellent.
you guys unmute just so we can make sure that we can hear one?
Yep, unmuted.
All
I
right,
am
Meg.
unmuted as well.
Good. Fantastic. That's great. Well, welcome in, folks. This is our next installment of K1. I'm flanked to my bottom left by Danielle Sullivan, fellow K1 team leader. And our goal with these is basically to provide varied training, learning from one another, and learning from folks that are doing some cool things. So topics are always different, but as a reminder, these are typically um, every other Thursday afternoon at 2, Zoom only. So if you're tuning in for the first time, that's our rhythm. It's like first and third typically. Is that right, Danielle? Putting you under the gun.
I think so, yes.
Just first and third, second and fourth. Read your emails, check Facebook. That's what's going on. Well, today's topic I'm excited about, both because I think it's an important topic, and because I think the people that are going to be bringing some knowledge are best suited to bring that knowledge because they've walked the walk. If everyone who's on here is in real estate in some form or fashion. I've heard different statistics, but something like 87% of people don't make it 3 years in the industry. There's lots of different reasons for that, but the bottom line is getting your license guarantees nothing. And your greatest opportunity and your greatest enemy faces you in the mirror each day. And if you've been licensed for any period of time, you know that struggle, you know that joy. And so our hope is today for you to leave a little bit more equipped, a little bit more encouraged, and knowing that you can do it. And I know that there's some people on this call who are not in their first year, which is good because we're never done learning. And many of us, if we could go back and do it again, might approach things a little bit differently. So I'm excited for today's conversation. As a kickoff, so I want to let my two guests introduce themselves. Lead off. Who are you? How long have you been in the industry, and what did you do prior to your career in real estate? Kaitlyn, I'll let you kick off.
Okay. I am Kaitlyn Shepard. I will be licensed 3 years in February. So before real estate, I was a store manager at a local Starbucks in Canton, for 9 years. And after that, around COVID, I got a job here at Keller Williams Legacy and Elevate, and I was the marketing and events coordinator for both Legacy and Elevate for a period of time before I got licensed.
Awesome. Megan, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Eckstein. I have been licensed for about a year and a half. Prior to getting my license, I actually spent about 20 years in the restaurant industry. So I have sold groceries to grocery stores and to restaurant supply places. And yeah, so I've been in sales for quite a long time, but about a year and a half into real estate. And then also I've been a real estate investor probably for about 12 years now.
Awesome. And you may be saying, wait, Megan's been licensed for more than a year and Kaitlyn's been licensed for more than a year. Why are they on here? It's because they were Legacy's respective rookies of the year each of the last 2 years. They walked the walk. The average in our community, the average agent sells roughly 7 homes a year. And I just did your guys' numbers. You may not remember, but you basically sold the same number of homes in your first year. They each sold 22 and a half for one of you and 23 homes in your first kind of once the production started. So they effectively outperformed their peers by 3 times, which is massive. I'm going to start off with a question that's unscripted. oftentimes people say, "Hey, I'm new to this industry, um, and I don't feel as though my prior experience set me up for this." And I actually just came from a meeting with an agent who is newish to the industry, and his career was not in sales, or in real estate, and yet he's crushing it. And we talked about how the things that we're coming from equip us for the things that we're moving into. There's no wasted time. So I would love to put you on the spot with our first unscripted question of the day. Don't you love it? Kaitlyn, you can kick off again. What would you say from your experience at Starbucks, and or the market center, marketing and events coordinator role helped equip you to dive in faster than most for this career?
I would say knowing first off, knowing who you are, is something that is important going into that. So, I always think of like the DISC personality assessment. But I think when people are looking for a real estate agent, they want someone that they know, like, and trust. So I was slinging slinging lattes for 9 years, basically. But I knew a lot of people in the community. And one of the things that was a goal at Starbucks was to always connect with your customers and connect with people, connect over coffee. And so it's really like the connection piece, and being able to just talk about anything. And if that leads to real estate or leads to what have you, I think being able to talk to people and connect to people and be someone that people can trust is a really important thing.
So focusing on connection is a muscle that you'd done a lot of exercising. Megan, how
Mhm.
about you?
So I think I agree with Kaitlyn, absolutely. Just connecting with people is such a great way to get into real estate, no matter what your prior experience was. And across all boards of all professions, you have to understand objection handling. And I think that that's something that you can transfer over into real estate, just because there's always a home inspection that you have to calm someone down in, or there's always, unrealistic expectations in a new home sale. So I think objection handling is something that you can transfer over no matter what the profession is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not a specific script. It's more of a posture and a
Absolutely.
mindset. I have practice in helping people work through their unanswered questions, which is effectively what objection handling is. So for those of you who are on the Zoom that aren't being interviewed right now, a question for you is, what might I be discounting from my past? What experience, what strengths did I bring in that I may be undervaluing when really there is a lot of value there. Megan, Kaitlyn, talk with me more as you think about prepping for the career before you were licensed. What did you do? Who did you talk with folks? Did you read? Like what enabled you to jump in and get after it faster than most? Because many people spend months kind of like just in learning mode. I don't want to get out there until I know everything or know as enough to feel comfortable. What did you do so that you were able to hit the ground running a little bit faster than most? You can rock, paper, scissors. I'm not always
I'll go
gonna
first.
Okay.
So, first off, don't get out there and talk to people and say that you're in real estate until you quote unquote know everything, because I don't know everything at all. No one does. So you have to put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm working on my real estate license, or I'm doing these things, help support me. But before I got my license, I spent a lot of time researching top producers, whether it be with KW or a different brokerage, and really just looked at their social media plans and what was working and what was not working. When I went past a billboard that had a realtor sign on it, like what stood out to me, what kind of hashtags or one-liners were they using, what shirts is everybody wearing, just as much information as I can get down, and I always picked up cards or picked up flyers just to see what worked and what didn't work with other top producers. So I could make it work for me.
That's great.
Yeah, I would add on just a logistical thing about the classes themselves. I had a goal for myself for the classes. Um, every morning, so at that time when I was taking my classes, I was working at Keller Williams. So I had a goal, I'm going to do 2 hours or 3 hours of my classes a day, and I would wake up early or I would do them at night. And I had a goal to get them done. And I tried to do them really quickly. I remember I started my classes on Thanksgiving and I was licensed by Valentine's Day. So part of it was like just start headstrong and start off. Some people take a really long time to do their classes, and sometimes I feel like the longer it takes, you lose motivation. So just a logistical piece, something that I did was like I made a goal. Okay, I have a week off of work. I'm gonna like get this book done out of the classes. My experience prior to being licensed was different because I was already exposed to the Keller Williams culture. So, and I was, my parents have a construction company. So I've seen what their lives look like, obviously, throughout my life. But I would attend the team meetings and I would hear the agents talking. And I was learning, even though I didn't realize I was learning, as I was in the team meetings and going to classes, meeting different agents. So similar to Megan, go out and meet as many agents that you can to get an idea of what does a day in the life of a real estate agent look like. And then one class that I specifically took, I think it was before I was licensed, was the DISC class. So that, Megan talked about objection handlers. It is a real thing when you're a real estate agent, and knowing your clients and other agents' personalities so you can get the best results. That was super helpful to take the DISC class and think about it from the lens of agents and clients in real estate.
Yeah, that's really good. So takeaway is go get hired by your local market center. Kidding, but both of you said something similar. And if you have been licensed for 1 month or 5 years and you haven't adopted the practice of modeling, which is effectively what you guys talked about. Hey, who's out there doing more than I am that I can either learn from indirectly or learn from directly? That's how we learn. We don't learn from just sitting and waiting. The relational piece is big. All right, let's talk schedule. Let's talk time management. And I want to, obviously, everyone, the beauty of this career is that everyone is in a different stage of life. You might have children at home. You might have another career that you're balancing. You may, whatever. We all have variables there. So I'm less interested in how it has to be so much as what did it look like for you to prioritize real estate? How did you prioritize real estate? That's part A. And then part B is, when I say prioritize real estate, what did that mean for you? What were you making sure that you spent time on in a week in, week out capacity? Megan, can you kick off? Because your path as a dual career starter, I think would be interesting to many.
Yeah, so my first year, I started April 1st and I worked both jobs until February. I had no intentions of leaving my full-time gig, but here we are. So time management with a dual career is absolutely necessary. And it worked out that I was still in sales. So I didn't have a place that I had to go and clock in and, not be on my phone during the day. I did have that opportunity. But before I even got licensed, before I even went to my classes, when I decided that I wanted to do this, I went to my boss at the company that I was working for, and I said, I would like to do both careers with no intentions of quitting. And what does this look like? Can you help me kind of time prioritize, you know, having both of these careers? And also, I wanted to be upfront and honest with him, because if my face was on a for sale sign and he drove past it, there would be questions. So I wanted to be upfront and honest and say, hey, I'd like your support, and how can I make this work? So that's what I did first. And having a dual career is not easy by any means. It is all about planning and having a list and prioritizing what makes sense at that time and at that day. So on a weekly basis, I time blocked for sure what my priorities were for each job at the time. I synced both of my calendars, so I had one calendar to work off of. I knew, I had to shorten my day this day because I was going to start showing houses at 4 o'clock, or I could prioritize my time at the food company and get a little bit extra done that day. So it really motivated me, just because, you know, um, I just was moving all the time, but it was definitely not for the weak. I think. Oh, and then also I started my day earlier than most, just to make sure that I had all of my items in my car for the day. I had all of the things that I needed to be successful, where I wasn't, in Akron and I needed to be in Carrollton and I didn't have what I needed. So, really organization. I had a, um, mentor at one point tell me, if you're overwhelmed, then you're not organized. And
Mhm.
that will happen when you have a dual career many times. But I would take Saturdays and say, okay, I'm not organized. What do I need to organize myself so I'm not overwhelmed anymore? So
That's really good, really challenging as a non-organized person. I think all too often, yeah, Kaitlyn can laugh extra hard because you've worked extra close with me. Um, uh, I think many of us we just take overwhelm as just a state of being. And let's be real, there are times where everything is happening and someone's sick and there's curveballs and there's, we can't always control everything. But if you're finding that overwhelm is kind of your resting state, what you're telling me, Megan, is that's a structural problem more than it is an emotional problem.
absolutely. If there was a day that I knew I was going to leave my house at 7 a.m. and I was not going to get home until 9 p.m., because there was many days like that. Um, I wrote down, these are the 7 places that I need to be for my food job. And then here's the 3 places that I'm showing. And I time blocked out for the day, because if I wasn't leaving, spot 3 by this time, I knew I had to make it up on the next spot. So it made it easier for me to make my day work for me.
Mhm. No, that's really good.
Yeah.
Kudos also, I think, going through the front door, so to speak, with your other career, saying like, "Hey, I want to be upfront about this." A, like that builds trust, and B, it just makes it easier to take the call or to send the text or say, "Hey, I'm going to go do this thing." Like you've plowed ahead rather than reacted to it. So
And
kudos.
and ultimately, eventually, you want your boss to find out, because you want your face to be on a sign somewhere and he drive past or she drive past and say, that's Megan. So I was just being prepared. My bosses lived in the area, and you want your bosses to know eventually. That's the name of the game. You want people to know.
Um, Question for you, and then I have a more specific facet to go to you, Kaitlyn. Did you, as we're talking about people identifying as certain things, thank you for that comment, Kaitlyn. Um,
Anytime.
Cassandra, please take your smile off of that. Did you identify as a part-time agent during that period? Why or why not?
I identified as a part-time agent. I probably put 30 plus hours in a week. But I think I sold it to my boss as this is just going to be part-time.
Sure.
My children are a little bit older, so I had the flexibility of like they can make their own dinner. So, so it worked out that I could, utilize more time than maybe some, but I did identify as a part-time agent, but I, I don't think there is such thing as a part-time agent that puts it,
Well, I would say, yeah, part-time is a state of mind.
mhm.
And I would say 30 hours a week for you as a quote part-time agent is more than many of our self-identifying full-time agents work. And so I encourage folks, not that there's a right or wrong, but I encourage you, particularly as you think about handling the objections of those around you, like, hey, I like you, I do, but I want to have an agent that I know is committed to me, and you're part-time, so that's probably not you. I like dual career as a term. Just it shows like, hey, I'm all in, and there are certain things that I need to account for in my schedule, and let's set expectations as it relates to timing, which you did. Kaitlyn, take us deeper on um, what you focused on when you say, "Hey, I'm doing real estate." Obviously, we talk about showings, but like, what were the things that you had to get done in a week or in a day in order to feel like you were winning?
Yeah. I will second what Megan said about calendaring and time blocking. Um, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. And that is a skill that if you have that skill and if you already have that skill, that's great. But it is something that you'll probably have to learn in order to be successful. I'll get to what I would do in a week, but I remember talking to an agent, actually Eric Henry, and shadowing him on I shadowed him on some inspections and some showings, and he had his clipboard and he had, all right, here are the 4 houses we're going to see at this time. I wrote the lockbox number and he had things highlighted that were important for the showing. And I just remember like, I'm going to do that. And I still do that to this day because how many times do you walk up to the front door to get the lockbox and showing time isn't working? But if you would have looked and wrote it on there beforehand, you wouldn't have that problem because I've also had that problem where it's like, oh, give me a second, I can't get you in the door. But anyways, so
Yeah, great tip.
in those like first few months and weeks of being licensed, something that I focused on, it's not all about, of course, every agent wants to schedule appointments, showings, listing appointments, but that's kind of like an end goal. Well, the end goal is obviously closing, but that's the first step to making money. But there's so many other little things that come before actually scheduling the appointment. So I'm the type of person that when I get home or when I go to bed, I need to know that I accomplished something on my to-do list. So I made a to-do list every day, and a lot of it for me was tracking. So I was tracking because I was trying to build my database. So the first thing that I would track is how many people did I reach out to? And I would just write their name. In coaching, there was something that we did where there's 100 names and you reach out to 100 people. And then did they respond? I would track that because to me, that's a win. Okay, maybe they saw my message and ignored it, but this person actually responded. So then I would track how many people responded. I would track if I got their contact information. And if I did, that went directly into my database in Command. Um, and then I would also track who did I get set up on an MLS home search this week? And did they look, you can see if they looked at it. So did I get them set up on a search? How many people did I get pre-approved or they started their application? And then finally appointments. So all those little things led up to okay, I went on a listing appointment or I went on an appointment. And those little things do matter because, that's how you get to making an appointment. It's like funneling, putting them through the funnel essentially. So
That's so good. And I think, you know, we talk about there's a difference between being busy and being effective, and that's exactly what you're talking about here. And you were all in full time when you were with real estate, so it's not as though you were necessarily juggling it, but like the difference between those who succeed and those who don't, in so many ways, is because those who succeed are hyper focused on the things that make a difference. And we all know, the person that spends forever researching something but never gets started on the thing, and the analysis paralysis. And you were learning based, and you had the advantage of being around KW for a time before getting started. But making it gamified. And so often when I talk with agents, hey, how's it going? How's real estate? Our default is to say like, well, I've got a closing coming up and I've got to buy, like we talk about like the bottom of the funnel sorts of things, which is logical, but to say like, hey, I've 18 days in a row of hitting my contacts goal or whatever, like moving up the funnel on controllable activities is such, I'd call it a hack, but it's just wisdom. So I love that. I want to jump down to further in some of the things we were going to talk about. You mentioned Eric Henry, and in our prep conversation, Megan, you talked about the value of having an extra person. So many new agents are either in coaching or on a team, and both of those paths have lots of value to them. And I'm going to argue, and I think Megan and Kaitlyn will support this, that there's value in having what's called an extra person. So Megan, I'm going to let you lead with that concept. What does that mean? And Kaitlyn, feel free to jump in as you'd like to.
Yeah, so I had Olivia Christie. She's an agent with Keller Williams. She's actually my cousin. And I already asked her if I could mention her, and she said that was fine. And so I went through Gina's training, and Gina is great, and there's some valuable tools there. But to have someone that you can call at 8 o'clock at night and be like, today was the worst, or, oh my gosh, someone called me back, is huge, or, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, or, just that person that you can bounce ideas off of, or you can bounce frustrations off of, or wins, how big or small they are. I wouldn't have been as successful if it wasn't for having someone to talk through everything. So I think my biggest piece of advice for anyone that is starting or anyone that just needs like a refresh is have your one person, like Grey's Anatomy, like your person, that you can just call and talk to and be like, I need a kick in the butt, or I need some help, or my well inspector won't call me back. Oh my gosh. And to have a seasoned realtor, to see, my old life is coming back at me, my seasoned sales rep, to have to like call or text or, just have a conversation with open and freely. It's such a huge part of my success, and I really suggest it for anyone that's new.
And if you don't have that person and you're like, I don't even know who I would call, the way that you get involved is be in the market center, come to the classes, come to the team meetings, because what do you do after team meeting? You complain about your deals, but it's also but that's when oh, I never thought of that. That's when you brainstorm things and you learn that way. So you'll find your people, but you have to come to things too. So
Absolutely. I think what we're describing is not a failure on whatever team you're on or in coaching. Like those things are often more group oriented, and the value of having someone that either can be a sounding board or can be an opportunity for reps. Like Kaitlyn, you mentioned Eric is like, no, we did showings together. Like the coaching program is not typically the place where you're getting a bunch of showings, but coming to the market center, meeting someone that's doing more business than you are, is added to it. Kaylee, we'll get to that question. Guys, a few minutes ago, Bree asked, and this would be specific to Megan, did you tell your clients, Megan, that you were working with that you were dual career? Why or why not?
I told everyone that would listen to me. I am doing real estate and I'm also working for the food company that I was working for. Like if you need some food or if you need a house, I got you covered. And I had one person ask me like how do you navigate that or how do you juggle that? And my response is if you want something done, ask the busiest person in the room, because they
Mm,
know how to figure it out. And I promise you that I have a team of agents behind me that I can rely on if I would not be available. My dual career was a little bit differently because, like I said, I didn't have a clock in, clock out. So if I wasn't available at the moment that they needed me, I was available very soon afterwards. But I was in Gina's training, and that's a team of agents that are available that you can rely on if you need help with something, for showings or your team or, your extra person or whomever that may be. I always said, like, I have a team of agents with Keller Williams Legacy Group that just stand beside me and behind me, and they help as well.
hmm That's so good. We can use team broadly. I work, and that's part of the value of coming in, building relationships, actually being visible. If you're a secret agent to your clients and to other agents, then it's hard to say that. So the importance of building relationships. We'll just do this briefly, and then we'll jump down to lead sources in a minute. Some newer agents struggle with the fact that everyone knows that they're new. And so first impressions, hey, I like you, Amanda, but with the biggest transaction of my life, I'm gonna work with someone that's more experienced. And so I don't advocate for people pretending like they're more experienced than they are. Kaitlyn, talk with us about kind of the about me section. What did you do to help establish rapport right out the gate that I may be new, but I'm your person?
Well, for one, I just never said I was new.
Mm,
Um, I never told my clients I'm a brand new agent. What I did say is I talked about my other experience and whether that is in a professional job. But it's a lot about how you present yourself and your actual presentation too. So kind of like bouncing back real quick to the scheduling piece, not only did I schedule because I was lead generating and blocked off that time period, but I also blocked off a lot of create like graphics, creating your buyers presentations and your listing presentations. Um, if you don't have about KW, um, and in my about me section, I say nearly 10 years experience in management, lifelong Stark County resident. So if you are active in the community, you can talk about the community if that is, you know, if you're geographically trying to reach a certain area, and then background in family business of custom home construction. So you don't necessarily have to talk about, I've done X number of deals. This is what I made last year. You don't have to say that. But coming prepared to your appointments, there are seasoned agents that, they just come and unlock the door. So you want to appear like you are putting in an effort. And anyone can make a package, even if you're not skilled at that. There's things that you can download through command, breakthrough broker, those type of things. So coming prepared, coming with your folder, explaining the consumer guide, that is where people start to, oh, she does know what she's talking about. Even if you're just explaining the consumer guide, they're going to start to trust you. And I think Megan and I were talking before this. I've had very few people ask me, well, how long have you been licensed? And I tell, I don't lie. I would definitely tell people how long I've been licensed. Um, if they ask, but if they don't ask, I did not offer that information up in the first place.
well,
Same.
and we know that.
Oh, sorry. Same. I've only had one person ask me how long I was licensed. And I think at the time I had been licensed like a month. And I was like, pretty new, but I can do, I know all the things. I know all the things. So,
Yeah, you also don't have to say this many days and this many months. Like I recently was licensed. You don't have to
Well,
say.
and we know
yeah.
pretty quick that you both have good responses, or you could have really good responses now, even if someone said like, how long, how experienced are you? Most vocations measure experience in years. I measure experience in transactions. And I can meet an agent. I actually, one of my very first deals was with an agent who'd been licensed for 19 years. I remember her telling me this. And she was incompetent. Like there were some very basic things that she did not understand. And I looked up her production. I'm like, oh, well, she's been doing 1 to 2 transactions a year for 19 years, which is fine. That can be her idea of a rich life, but that doesn't mean that she knows much, because I was basically as productive as she was at that point. So that's, the more you sell, the more experienced you become, and you can fast track and move past that question. Staying on this topic for a second further, upon being newly licensed, and I was actually just talking with another agent who happens to be on the Zoom. Some people go from like, hey, I'm not on social media that much, to now I feel like I need to be on social media a bunch. How did you go about kind of announcing yourself or gaining visibility when it may not have been something that you were doing all that much prior to that?
Well, I started first by making a Facebook business page, which is different than your personal page. Um, and I would say I was probably one of those creepy like Facebook scrollers where I would just like look at things but never post anything before getting
You're so
licensed.
creepy,
But
Caitlin. Anyone
I
who ever
know,
meets
I
you is creepy.
know. But then I did turn creepy and I started friending everyone. I started just friending everyone in the community. I went because that was part of my strategy. I'm going to go to the Louisville community page and I'm going to friend people until I get told not to on
Yeah.
Facebook. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a shift to think about that, but you also have to think I'm adding value. If I post things that are adding value to people's lives that are either entertaining or educational, um, people will read your things if you're posting a market update. Now, if you do it 7 times a day, people will just keep scrolling. So, part of the scheduling, I had a plan for social media and posting 2 to 3 times a week. Some of it was just funny. And if you're like, I don't know what to post, there's definitely resources for that too. But when I was even when I was shadowing agents, I would post going to a showing in my first month, people don't know it's not your client. If you're, there's some good that can come of that because you're just getting the awareness out that I am a real estate agent, I am licensed, and I am doing the thing.
Mhm.
Don't be a secret agent because then people will never know. And I would say, especially starting out, if you are not in a lead buying purchasing program, your biggest clients are your sphere of influence most of the time. So you need to tell them that you are licensed, whether you're just going to pick up the phone and call them, or a combination usually is the best. Posting on social media, that sort of thing.
That's great. You're right. Most people who aren't investing in lead sources, their primary lead source is SOI, but that's not true for Megan. Megan, can I tee you up to talk about what you did to crush it in year one as it relates to where most of your business is coming from?
Yeah, so I did open houses for anyone and everyone that I could request an open house from. So, um, it put me outside of where my comfort level was because I was reaching out to agents that had listings and were probably way more experienced than I was, but every week I had a goal of, okay, I think I can do 2 or 3 open houses this week. And that was based off of my dual career, my other career that I had. I know for the week that I will have Thursday night open and Sunday from this time to this time available. So I tried to schedule every week to at least have one open house. Now I scheduled it to where I only had it on this day, this day, and this day. I blocked those out, but you can do it however you want. So every week on Wednesday and on Thursday, I would send a text message and a follow-up phone call to as many agents as I possibly could. And there were many, I mean, I even text you, Kaitlyn, like, hey, can I do an open
I
house
was just
for
gonna say, I
you?
was one of those.
So, and I think that I either wore people down or
Fine,
they
Megan.
just were like, okay, I don't want to do this. And that's where 70% of my buyers came from. And I know a lot of people and I have a large sphere, but 70% of my buyers came from open houses that I did in the first year. I mean, and I didn't stop. This Sunday, I'm doing an open house for 2 different agents. So, it's, don't get aggressive, like, mean or anything, but I kind of got aggressive with people like, hey, I'm still reaching out, still want to do an open house for you. I have cookies, I do balloons, I do this, and I've had 2 deals that I had offers written from the open house. So I utilize that like as a successful item that I can share with other agents like, hey, let me do an open house for you. In the past, I've had 2 deals just from those open houses. So you can share that with the agent and the agent can share that with the seller as well. So
Hey, Megan, to be clear, are you just contacting agents whether you know they have a listing or not, saying like, hey, if you got something coming, like let me be your girl, or how are you finding the people to call? How are you
no,
making?
I'm looking up on the MLS every Wednesday and every Thursday evening, any new listings, any listings at all that are in the MLS. And you can do them for other agents outside the brokerage, I was told.
Mhm.
Okay. We
Yeah.
did not go over that beforehand, but I have never had success with that. But I even, at one point, I had ran out of people to contact with the legacy. So I reached out to other agents from other brokerages and said, hey, I'd love to do an open house for you. Is it okay? I haven't had success with that yet, but I haven't given up on it yet either. So
Well, and you're fortunate that you're part of the broker. You're at the brokerage that takes more listings than any other brokerage in the county, and so if you were at a smaller shop, that might be more necessary than it's been for you at this point. Just a quick like brokerage PSA. Yes, you can hold it opens for others, and you can have people from other brokerages hold open for you. Though don't do that because we have plenty of people that want opens here. Um, the one click rule is what applies though. So when you're promoting that, and there's a link to that listing, someone needs to be able to make one click and know whose listing it is, or what brokerage's listing it is. So it doesn't have to be on the graphic. I think it's a good courtesy to have like, hey, open house, I'm hosting this open listed by so and so. Like that's a nice thing to do, but it's not a necessary thing to do. But the one click rule is kind of if Rich were on this call, that's what he would butt in and say. So that's what I'll say.
also, I just want to mention that I always reached out to agents and said, hey, I will market your listing as well on my Facebook page as well. You'll get added views on I tried to make it so the agents, it was simplistic for them. I took care of all the signs. I did all they had to do was put it in the MLS. So you want to make it as easy as possible for the other agent just because of simplicity.
Yep. No, that's great. Megan, let's go a minute deeper with that. A naysayer might be like, yeah, I've hosted 6 opens and I have not gotten that many buyers. What did you do differently, or just what did you do at open houses that you think helped to convert window shoppers into clients?
Yeah, I've done 10 open houses where no one showed up, or I've done many open houses that no one showed up.
So it's a numbers game in a lot
It's
of
a
ways
numbers
too.
game.
Yeah.
And it takes one open house to get one buyer for all of a sudden you have a $5,000 commission. And those other 4 open houses that you didn't get a person at made it all worth it. At the end of the day, it's 1 hour. And if you have little kids, it's 1 hour away, just in quietness. I'm just kidding. But it's takes something to do if you don't have anyone, but I used it as practice to interact with people. I always ask people when they are walking through, like if they're like, oh, I'm just the neighbor, I just wanted to see what it looked like. Okay, well, at the end, what do you like about the house? What do you not like about the house? Are you interested in moving? Do you know someone that's interested in buying or selling? You can use it as practice, no matter if you get a buyer or seller out of it. So
Yeah.
you can't chalk it up to a loss if you didn't get a sale out of the first open house that you did. I remember I did 5 open houses before I got a buyer. It was so depressing, but I was not going to give up. And it only takes one, and then it makes all the others worth it.
I so appreciate you making that point, because I think it's human nature, and realtors are human, so it's in realtor nature as well to say, well, I did that and it didn't work. And then you go deeper. Let's say it's mailers. Like, yeah, I did mailers and it didn't work. It's like, oh, you sent one mailer one time and it didn't generate a listing appointment for you? Like, what weirdo would call someone from one piece of mail? Like, that's not how this works. Like, persistence and consistency is what works. And any lead generation source out there is a numbers game. Some have higher conversions than others, but Megan, I think part of your secret sauce is you did 5 and then you did the 6th. And I think a lot of people would have done 3 and say, open houses are a thing from the past. That's not where business comes from. And your stats would bear out otherwise. And so kind of persistence and focus, I think goes a long way. Let's shift into planning, goal setting, GPS stuff. I think a lot of people, they might sit down one time and they say, hey, it'd be cool to sell 24 homes, or it'd be cool to make 100 grand. And then they put it on a piece of paper after their coaching session, and it, kind of becomes an afterthought. Kaitlyn, I'll let you kick off. Talk with me about aiming for something and having an ongoing relationship with your goals. I know I've been impressed by some of your kind of campaign planning and your kind of consistent reassessing of what you're aiming for. Just talk us through your process and mindset there.
Okay.
You're muted.
Sorry, I was looking at my GPS as you were saying that. Yeah, so your GPS shouldn't be something that you create on January 1st and then you look at it September 30th and you're like, oh crap, I didn't do anything. It should be a living document. So sometimes that means changing your goals if something's not working after you've tried it for a while, or focusing on fewer things. And I will say in the first year, focusing on like 2 or 3 maximum, I would say 2 lead sources. Some people, try all 12 of them, or like, I'm going to try 12 and see what hits or what sticks. I would say pick 2 things and really go after them. And the 2 things that are natural to you. I've seen agents that try to do the social media route, but it's so not natural to them. And they feel anxious, they feel frustrated. But do what is most natural to you, like open houses or whatever, fill in the blank. So that's where I started with the GPS. What's most natural to me? What am I already, what am I decently good at? And then I picked those 2 things. So on my GPS for the first year, I was working on social media, farming, and my database, so my SOI. And then I had another category of personal learning and business organization. So kind of getting my finances set up. I had a goal, complete my 20 hours of post licensure. And it is one of those things, if it's not on your calendar, you might forget. And then a month before, you're like, oh crap, I have to do my 20 hours. So I think really honing in on social media. I made a calendar of the types of things that I was going to post. So like I said before, entertaining and educational. And then another one could just be, hey, I'm out on a showing, that's that sort of stuff. Social media calendar. And then also with my sphere of influence, I really worked on getting my database together. So that was in my GPS. There would be, on a rainy day, I would sit down, going back to the creepiness, sit down on Facebook and find out all my Facebook friends' birthdays, and I would put them in my
Ooh.
database. Oh yeah, super creepy.
What percentage of them had it listed?
A lot. People have
Okay.
a lot of information on Facebook.
Yeah.
Emails, phone numbers, you would be shocked. Um,
Yeah.
but also addresses, like you can, I don't know if this is kosher, but you can
Careful,
look
careful.
up Forewarn and find their address, just to create a fuller contact in your database.
Mhm.
And it's usually people you already know. Um, Lynn Scott had a program where you could go into your phone and download all of your contacts into your database.
Yep.
So I'm sure that's still a thing.
Yep.
So really focusing on your 2 or maybe 3 lead sources was on my GPS to really, really focus. And like I said, don't try to do it all.
Did you, Kaitlyn, did you say every Monday morning I'm looking at my GPS and talk with me about, did you have set rhythms, or was it just the fact that it was taped up in front of your computer and you couldn't avoid it? Like, how did you continue to relate to your goals?
I would write down ideas, and I would definitely look at it every single day. But another thing that I did, like in addition to the GPS, because I am a big visual and calendaring person, is make a campaign schedule of what I wanted to do every month. So Valentine's Day, you are the heart of my business postcards. And then in the summer, I'm gonna send an ice cream coin, a free ice cream cone to my database, and mail those out or whatever. I'm going to do a quarterly seasonal newsletter. So those things I pulled from the GPS and I put them into a calendar,
Yep.
because to me, I was never going to get them done if they weren't on my calendar. And I would make deadlines for myself. It's just you, you're your own boss. So no one's going to tell you you're late on your spring newsletter. But I would always say, all right, first day of spring, better get my newsletter out. So those things, like making it really actionable, that is what made me actually do it. So that's what I would say, how I brought the GPS to life.
That's great. Megan, would you add anything, or what did planning look like for you and kind of relationship with goals?
So my goals were much less my first year. I really wasn't expecting to be as successful as what I was. And I mean that humbly. I really focused on getting my name out there, creating social media, really just talking to as many people as I could and getting in front of as many people as I could. And that is the piece of the open houses. Like, I can talk to people, I can interact with them and see what is keeping people up at night. That's what I did before, and that's the sales that I was in before. And I would walk into clients, at my previous job and say, what's keeping you up at night? And, there's a lot of people that need a house yesterday or tomorrow, or so my focus was just to interact with as many people as I possibly could, so I could get a better understanding of just the real estate world in general. whether it be realtors or clients or lenders or home inspectors or anything. I mean, this is a relationship career, hands down. So that was really my focus. I didn't base my success off of the amount of money that I made or the amount of deals that I did. It was more of, how can I reach out to these people? How did I sent mailers, I did Facebook posts, I figured out how to open an Instagram account. I did all of those things that I thought were successful. And if you do those things and if you create that content and if you connect with people, the money will come.
Yeah, that's so good. Kaitlyn said something a minute ago that I want to camp on, and then I would love for you guys to interact with Kaylee's question from several minutes ago. So Kaitlyn, you said basically do the things that you're going to do. Do the things that are going to come a little bit more naturally to you. And that actually ties to a conversation I had with Jimmy earlier today, where a lot of us have, we get should on, I'll say, or, oh, I should do this. I should door knock, right? Because that's something that salespeople do. And my answer is, you should do the lead generating thing that you're most likely to be doing again a month from now, and a month after that, and a month after that. And some of us just know, hey, I know that cold calling works for some, but I'm going to feel like I'm shriveling up and dying every time I do it. I'm like, well, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it because people are going to feel that on the other side of the phone. That said, that's not an excuse to keep you from growing. And none of us are fully polished at anything. So I'm going to encourage you to consider something that I'm going to call the 60-40 rule, where in any given task or project, if 60% of it I'm like basically good at and it feels like it comes naturally and this feels okay, acknowledging that I still have things to learn and I'm going to have boneheaded moments, that means it's worth pursuing. So like, yeah, social media, I'm not like a pro, I'm not an influencer, but like, I feel like I can wrap my mind around that and I could systematize that. Cool. Like that's probably in the 60-40 plus range. Whereas I'll just pick on cold calling again. It's like, if I feel like I'm just dying every time I talk with a stranger who doesn't want me to talk with them, and it is certainly not 60% enjoyable, then move on and let the other agents do that and don't feel terrible about that. That's just my hobby horse for a second. All right, Kaylee asked several minutes ago, what is your biggest advice for your first year? I'm dying to no longer be dual career and 8 months in with only 2 closings. I dedicate most of my week to real estate and lead hunting, but I feel like I am missing something. Megan and Kaitlyn, what would your biggest piece of advice be?
My biggest piece of advice would be, make sure everyone knows you're a real estate agent. And that for me was because a big lead source for me was my sphere of influence. So my other piece of advice would be, pick that one thing and just go at it. If it's open houses, like that's what Megan did, and she went at it and she didn't stop. Or social media, whatever it is, calling for sale by owners, making sure everyone knows you're a real estate agent, and making sure like you're a real estate agent. Like I'm a full-time agent, and like I agree with Mark, I would never say I'm a part-time agent. I'm a full-time agent. I do real estate, and as you start to do those things and you pick that one thing and you start to become successful a little bit more every month, you'll get more confidence in other categories. So like I don't call a lot of FSBOs, but in my first year, I had a closing from converting a FSBO to my listing. So, you need to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, but when you're first starting, go for your one thing and make sure everyone knows you're an agent.
Megan, what would you say?
I agree with Kaitlyn. I think picking something that you're good at, whether it be door knocking or cold calling. I am not good at door knocking. I did it one time and it kind of freaked me out, so I'm not doing it again.
Yes, just
yeah, done with that. So find the thing that you're good at, or you feel comfortable with, or you have confidence in, whatever that may be. And
And then
then
make goals around it too.
yes, yes, absolutely. And then also take the last couple months and say, okay, what have I done in real estate? What has not worked and what has worked? And if it has not worked, how many times have you done it? Because if you've done it 2 or 3 times, that's not enough information to gather to make, whether that this was a right or wrong decision to do that item. And then whatever you have done that has been successful, you've had 2 closings. How did you get those closings? Was it family? Then go to more family events. Go to call everyone in your family and say, hey, do you know someone that is listing a property or thinking about selling? Can I call them? Or if it's friends, say, hey, I have more friends. I know that you have more friends. Let's talk. One of the things that I am going to do for 2025 is I did sip and chats. So I kind of smashed my 2 careers together, and I did sip and chats at restaurants that I knew, and I knew the owner, and I said, hey, can I sit down? Like, let's put a flyer in your lobby that says, I'm going to do this from 5 to 7 on a Thursday or Tuesday or whatever. And then anytime that a server would have their table come over and talk to me about real estate or lending or whatever, then I would tip that server. So I would buy the person a drink, and I now I lost all train of thought. And so it worked out. I mean, I've only done a few of them, but that's one of my goals for 2025, because they were fun. And I got to sit there and have a beer or a glass of wine with somebody and just talk about real estate. I mean, did it ever come out of anything? Like I said, I've only done 2. So I got to connect with people. Nothing really happened out of it, but I don't think that I gave it a fair shot either. So there's lots of things that I did in the first year. I didn't focus on one thing other than the open houses, and I should have taken Kaitlyn's advice and focused on the one thing that was really, really made me successful. So that's my advice.
Well, your sip and chat is basically an open house just in a restaurant.
I know
You
it
can
was
rope
it
your
was a
lender
lot of
into doing
fun.
that. Pull in your lender, pull in American Title, like
Yeah.
get people.
Yeah,
I
it
love
was a
it.
lot of fun. I plan on doing more. It was
That's
just,
awesome.
timing and everything else. And then the last thing is get a person. Get someone that you can be like, oh my gosh, guess what just happened? Or whatever that may be. Like, hands down, you gotta have a person.
Yep. Totally agree. That's a great note to end on. We're a couple minutes past, so I want to honor everyone's time. Thank you, Megan and Kaitlyn, for opening up your playbook and sharing kind of what your experience has been. And yeah, that's one thing I love about KW is we don't need to keep secrets. So thank you for sharing your wins. I hope everyone has been able to take one actionable nugget, go put it into action, and see you all next time. Enjoy your